Thank you all for being here. My name is Roger Cantu, and I'm going to share some of my stories with you. And I have this idea to write a book about my stories and put them all together and share them with everybody, because I feel that you can gain a lot of inspiration from these stories. My story starts when I'm about 10 years old. And this day, I went to a Catholic school. I was born in Mexico, and when I was young, my family moved to the U.S. We moved to Texas. But when I was about 10 years old, I was attending a Catholic school in Mexico. And that day, it was very exciting for us because our teacher was going to take us to the library. And we went to the library in a single file like we always did. And our teacher told us, okay, I want you to go to the library, find a book that you want to read, and you're going to write a report. So when I got there, all my friends rushed to the kids section. They were looking for comic books, illustrated novels, that kind of stuff. And I decided to do something a little bit different. I decided that I was going to walk around the library and run my finger through all the books in the library until I found the right one. So I'm, walking around, feeling all the books, and all of a sudden my finger got stuck in a book. And I pulled the book out, and it's got this guy on the cover. He's sitting on a weird cross-legged position. He's got a pointy hat, and he's got a dot right in the center of his forehead. And I'm like, wow, a book about somebody so odd looking ought to be good, right? So I look at the book, I start looking at it, and I turn around, I looked at it, and I said, well, it's not too big, yeah, looks good. So I walked to the librarian, and she was talking to one of the Franciscan monks that ran the school. And he looks at me, he looks at the book, and he goes, oh no, you don't want to read that. I'm like, sure, why not? And it looks nice, looks interesting. And he's like, that's a very big book, and you're going to have to write a report about it. I'm like, well, that's all right. I like reading, it's fine. So he looks the other way, and I hand the book to the librarian, and she checks it out for me, and I go outside and sit on the tree and start reading the book. And I said, as soon as I start reading the book, I'm fascinated by the story. It's very compelling. It's interesting. It's everything that I wanted to read, right? So the book was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Frozen? Okay.
Huh? Did somebody say anything? Was there a comment?
I think the screen for a minute. It froze for me. I could turn my video on.
Sorry.
Hi. I think the screen for a minute. Did that happen to anybody else, or?
Yeah, the last thing I heard was you were about to check out the book, and the guy's telling you not to because it's big.
Okay, so I take the book out to the counter to get it checked out, and the Franciscan monk is like, "No, you don't want to read that book," and I'm like, "Sure, I do. It looks good." And he said, "Oh, it's so long. You're gonna have to write a report about it." And I'm like, that's all right. I like to read. So I check out the book, I go outside and I sit on the tree and I start reading the book, and it's really interesting. And it's exactly what I was looking for. And the book was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. So this book put me on the path of Buddhism and meditation. And after I started reading that book, I just couldn't get enough. I started reading other books. And I started looking for, to learn more about Buddhism and meditation, and I was really interested, and I just started reading all these books. And my parents are looking at me like, why is he reading those books? Why is he not reading, comics or something? And that really got me started on this path. And a couple of months later, I found this book called Tibetan Yoga and Secret Doctrines. And I'm like, oh, secret. I like secrets. And I started reading this book, and it starts talking about poa. Poa is the practice of consciously meditating. Consciously dying. And the book goes through an explanation of, if you want to see what the death process is like, just picture your death, picture everybody that came to your funeral, and then, let go of your life and start feeling that consciousness leaving your body. And if your practice is when you die, you'll be able to have a conscious experience of what it's like. And of course, I'm just a little kid, and I'm reading this book, and I thought, okay, I got to practice this. So I go and hide in my parents' closet, and I have just enough light to read the book and follow the instructions. And I'm thinking about what's going on, and I'm thinking, I'm dying, I'm dead, I'm in the coffin, and my parents are crying over me, and and then I start crying. And then, I become this mess of a kid in the middle of the closet. And then my mom walks in, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing? What's going on? Why are you crying like that? What happened?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm practicing poa." She's like, "What's that?" So I'm like, so we had a talk, and my parents told me, well, maybe you need to take a break from, here I am with, the Tibetan Book of the Dead on one hand and Tibetan Secret Doctrines on the other hand. And they're like, okay, maybe take a break and take it easy a little bit, okay? Don't go crazy with these books. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, And but of course, I always kept my interest. And then my parents and I moved to Laredo, Texas, where I grew up. And back then, Jose and Laura Silva were living in Laredo. Jose Silva was the founder of Silva Mind Control. And I started hearing about Silva Mind Control, and I saw the book, and I became very interested in this. And I contacted the Silva Mind Control Center, and they told me about the classes they had, and it was really interesting. And back then, the Silva Mind Control course was very different than it is now. Back then, it was a 4-day seminar. You were there from early in the morning until late at night. They did a lot of mental programming with you. There was a lot of hands-on practice. They did dynamic meditation, visualization techniques. We did hours of training with the alpha sound, training our brains to go in the right direction. We practice memory techniques. We practice healing with your hands and at a distance. We practice how to manifest things into your life, how to bring things into your life. And I became very, very adept at all of these things. In fact, Silva started using me for some of the research that they were doing. At one point, they hooked me up with electrodes to see how long it would take me to go into alpha, and how long I could maintain it, and being aware of it at the same time. Another time they hooked me up with electrodes, and every time I went into alpha, they had a train in front of me, and the train would start moving when I was into alpha. So it was, there was a lot of hands-on practice on how to get your brain into the right state and how to do all of those things. And it got to the point where, like for memory, you could give me a list of 30 items, and I would repeat the 30 items to you because I was really good at that. And for some of the other things like healing, I started doing a lot of hands-on healing on people. For example, I met these two girls. They were young teenagers, and both of them were kind of overweight. And one of them told me, I want you to try this healing on me and get rid of my overweight. And I said, okay, well, let's try it. And I did some sessions with her, and she became very thin. And up to this day, she's very thin, and her twin is really obese. And I don't understand how that happened, but it happened. At one point, my grandfather was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and the doctors told him, look, we had to do a surgery, we had to remove everything, and it's either that or you die. And he was very sad. He was depressed. He almost didn't do the surgery, but I told him, I'm going to work on you at a distance, and I'm going to send you all this really good energy, and you're going to be fine. And he had the surgery, and they went in and they found one small benign tumor that they were able to remove and nothing else. And he came out of the surgery. He was, he couldn't believe it. He was so happy. And at that time, I was young. I was in my late teens, and I truly believed in everything that they were teaching me at Silva. I truly believed that I could do all of those things. And I think that's very important, because if we can get into the state of mind where we believe that we can do all of these things, we actually can. As we grow up, we become doubtful. We start having, all these ideas, and, oh, maybe it was not that I was healing someone, maybe it just happened. Maybe it wasn't this way, maybe it happened another way. You have a lot of doubts when you become an adult, and you start doubting yourself. And then those powers, if you don't believe in them, they go away. So I can't heal people the way I used to when I was a young teen. I can't do some of the things that I used to do. And maybe I just don't believe it enough anymore. I don't know. But at that time, I was, it was really amazing the things that I could do. Maybe I think that I was in the right state of mind. Like Rama used to say, it's all dependent on your state of mind. And I haven't been practicing it anymore. But the things that happened to me during that period of time were really amazing. So I did Silva for a while. I was very involved with Jose, and Laura was actually my neighbor down the street. And I worked with them for a while, went to their conventions, and really worked on that for a while. I wanted to become a civil mind control teacher for a while, but then I met Rama and everything went out the window, because he totally shattered my idea of reality. But while I was in Laredo, as I'm progressing through high school, I decided to take an English literature class, as one of those classes that you take while you're still in high school to get some college credits. And I met this professor. His name was Carlos Flores, and he was very interested in the Native American movement, in the shamans, the curanderos, all that kind of stuff. And he told me, I have this dancer. He's a concerto dancer from Mexico City, from central Mexico, and he's gonna come and over the weekend, and he's gonna do a ceremony for us. It's the weekend of the Virgin of Guadalupe. So usually the Native Americans from Mexico have big celebrations during that time, and they're coming. They were gonna be staying at his house, and since I speak Spanish, he thought that I would be a good host for the group. So I'm like, that sounds good. So I came to his house on it was a Thursday night, and I'm just waiting. He had a big house, and he had like two houses because he rented the one in the back. So in between the two houses, there was this big yard. And I'm just, sitting around the yard waiting for them to come in. Excuse me. So the main shaman, the curandero, his name was El Capitan Andres Segura. He was the leader of the group, and he comes in first. And I'm just there by myself, so I welcome him, and we start talking, and one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden we're talking, we're sitting on the floor, and he starts staring at me. The kind of look that kind of pierces your soul. He starts looking at my energy and all of that stuff, and he goes, what do? Do you meditate? Do you know, what's going on? So I started talking to him about civil mind control and meditating and all the Buddhist books that I've been reading, and that I'm interested in power and this and that. And he goes to me, and so you're interested in power, huh? Why do you want power? And I told him, well, I want power because I want to help people. And he told me, you know, in all of my years, nobody has ever given me the right answer until now. I will teach you whatever you want to learn. And then, you know, he started talking about, you know, he started explaining to me what they do as a group. He was telling me that as concerto dancers, they come into a community and they perform this ritual in a circle where they start dancing, and their energy, they start forming a ball of energy around the circle where they're dancing. And then they expand the energy, because the energy is a moving meditation. And they expand the energy to the community, and this helps the community as a whole. So they go and they do all these ceremonies, and the people think, oh, you know, it's tradition, you know, they're trying to keep this or that, or, you know, they want to revere the Virgin of Guadalupe or this or that. And he's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. We go into the communities to change the energy, to improve their energy, to help the community, but they don't know that. That's our secret mission. So I'm like, wow, you know, this is fascinating. And so we talked for a while, and then he kind of laid down on the grass, and then he started tapping his feet, and he started chanting. And, you know, I decided to, you know, sit up and start meditating. And then it's like all this energy around us, you know, became like golden energy around the backyard. And we had a really, really high meditation while I was there. And then, you know, at some point he stopped and he started walking around, and I took a break because, you know, I was really out of it by then. And then the rest of the group came in, and I met everybody, got acquainted with everybody. The next day, he did a demonstration at the university where they did a dance. And this man, he was probably in his 50s, around there, but he was very, very strong. I mean, he looked old. His face was, you know, he had wrinkles and gray hair and all that, but he was very, very strong. And when he would jump into the air, he would levitate for a few seconds, and then he would come down again. You know, watching him was just amazing, because he would jump and stop and then go down again. And just watching the whole group was really fascinating. And then the next day, on Sunday, they had the ritual that they did at the church, and, you know, they burned the sage and all that, and then they have a big ceremony where they run around in the circle, and they move that circle of energy. And I could feel it when I went to see the ceremony at the church. I could feel the energy just vibrating from them. It was a very powerful experience. And at the end of the weekend, he told me, you know, if I'm going to give you my phone number, and if you ever come to Mexico City or Central Mexico, you know, call me. And I would like to invite you to the festival. There's an annual festival in Chalma in Mexico, where they dance for like 3 days straight, and they have people that hang from poles, and they spin them around, and they do all this, you know, crazy things. And he told me, you know, once I'm there, you know, I'm there for a week or 10 days, and we'll have a lot of time to talk if you want to come. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it. You know, I was about 17 at the time, so going by myself to Central Mexico was not something I could do. But I talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and that was nice. And before we parted, he said to me, I'm gonna give you some homework. I'm like, okay. Have you ever heard of Carlos Castañeda? And I'm like, no. Okay, so Carlos Castañeda is this guy who has written a series of books about his adventures with a couple of sorcerers. You need to read those books because those books talk about me. And there's also another book that I want you to read that also talks about me, and it's called At the Sign of Midnight. Find those books, read them, and then we'll meet again. Unfortunately, we never met again, except for on the phone. But that was my introduction to the books by Carlos Castañeda. So I got to read those books before I met Rama. And the books are fascinating. Now, if I look at all the characters in the book, he fits the image of Don Genaro very well. And I don't know if he was Don Genaro or not, but and from what I've been hearing recently about the books of Carlos Castañeda, they were inspired by different shamans. So there was more than one Don Juan. There was more than one Don Genaro, and they put them all together. Now there's a guy down in Baja who claims that he is Don Juan, that the books were based on him. And if you go to his house, he's got like pictures with Carlos Castañeda, and he's got all this books signed by him and all this other stuff. So, and if you talk to him, he tells you, yeah, the books were based on myself and other people like me, and he put them all together like that. But regardless of that, you know, that was, I love the books. The books are just awesome. So that was my introduction to Carlos Castañeda and the world of, you know, shamanism. Now, a couple of months later, I got to meet a tiger. His name was Tiger Perez. He was another shaman, another curandero that was coming to town. And Carlos, my professor, was going to meet him again. He was sponsoring a lecture that he was going to do. And when he came to town, I met him, and he was going to do a lecture at the university. And I got my cassette recorded, you know, because that's what we had at the time, you know, top of the line technology. I had my cassette recorder ready to record a lecture because I wasn't going to miss it. You know, I really wanted to record this. And I checked the tape, I checked the batteries, you know, everything was ready to go. And when he started, you know, I played record and I made sure that he was going. And he talked a lot about, you know, he talked about nature. He talked about, you know, our need to become one with the spirit of the earth. And, you know, he was very inspiring, talking about all these things about nature and stuff like that. And it was very interesting. And at the end of the lecture, you know, I stopped the recording, rewind the tape, and there's nothing. And I fast forward the tape, nothing. I keep on looking through the tape, nothing. And I told him, you know, I don't know what happened. I was set to record everything. And he laughs at me and he goes, yeah, things like that happen around me all the time. It's just what happens. Yeah, he tried to record me and you won't hear anything. You know, you can probably put a mirror to my face and you won't see my face. You know, I don't know. He was very funny. So the next day, I was going to drive with him from Laredo to another small town called San Isidro. And San Isidro is known for a place where a lot of Native Americans go to gather peyote and other magical plants for their ceremonies. My professor had moved from Laredo to San Ignacio, which was about a 45-minute drive or something like that. And I was gonna go with Tiger that afternoon. It was around sunset, and my friend Bobby was going with us. So we get in the car and we're driving. Yeah. And of course, now I have all this lingo about Carlos Castañeda. So I start asking him about the second attention, the second ring of power. You know, I started asking him about meditation and all these other things. And, you know, the conversation's going in a very interesting direction. And all of a sudden, we notice that there's a crow following the car. And then there's two crows. And then there's a whole bunch of crows. And then there's dozens of crows. And then there's hundreds of crows following our car. And all of a sudden, Tiger slams on his brakes and he stops in the middle of the road in the middle of nowhere. And he starts walking into the woods and he looks at me and says, follow me. So I get out of the car and start following him, of course. And we came to this area that was open and there was a dead crow in the middle. And he told me, this crow has died to give you his feathers. From now on, you're going to be protected by the crows. And then he grabs the crow and he starts pulling the feathers out and he starts chanting in his native language. And then he cleans the feathers with some sand that was there. And he told me, you can take these feathers, have them with you. And if you want, you can make it like a little fan, or if you want, just keep the feathers with you. This is a present of power that the crow is presenting you. And then we buried the crow. And he told me, if you ever find a dead crow again, you need to bury him and give him take the feathers and give him a nice burial. So I did all of that. And then we got back in the car and we kept on driving and we got to San Isidro. And then all the crows disappeared right before we got into town. So it was a very powerful trip. And I got to see power in a way that I had not seen before. Now there's a word of caution in this story. My friend Bobby, who had never studied meditation, he was not exposed to any of this. He was freaking out. And after that night, he became very weird. He started smoking a lot of pot. He started talking to entities and spirits and other things. At one point he joined the Marines and got kicked out. Then he joined the Army and got kicked out. And eventually he ended up in a mental institution where they were actually able to help him. But the thing is that if your life is not stable, if you're not balanced, then these experiences can have a bad effect on your life. So after meeting Tiger, I went to California and I met Rama. And when I met Rama, one of the first things that he started talking to me about, or to the group at that point, was how do you organize your life? How do you balance your life? How do you make your life really solid so that when you have this type of experiences, you can jump forward and gain this power? Rama told us that there was a very fine line between being in really high states of mind and being in states of mind where you can be delusional, where bad things could happen. And he talked a lot about balance. He started from, how do you put your clothes together? How do you do your resume? How do you, what are all the different aspects of your life that you have to put together? In the Rama tradition, we spend a lot of time meditating. We spend a lot of time working on our careers. We spend time in martial arts. All of these things are things that give us balance, so that when we go out to the desert, so when we have powerful experiences, they can really be helpful in our lives and give us the meaning, the power that we're looking for in a balanced way. And that's what I want to talk about next time when we get together again. Talk about my experiences in California, what happened after I moved from Texas to California, because I left Texas and lived in California for about 12 years while I was studying with Rama. And then I followed his adventures to, Northern California, DC, New York, the desert, all of that. And there were really, there's a lot of fascinating stories that I have there. And then at one point, Rama goes to me, you need to go to India and study with Sai Baba for a little while and then come back. And I did that. And I wrote a book about my experiences in India. And now I'm thinking that I should put it all together and write all the stories and just make it one book, but I'm not really sure about that yet. But when we meet next time, I will continue the story because there's a lot more to the story. but I wanted to give you, the introduction to my path, my pathway to enlightenment, my pathway to power, and all these wonderful things. And yeah, that's the idea. Do you have any questions, any comments? Otherwise, we'll meditate. And then if you have any questions or comments after the meditation, we can spend some time chatting. I'll be glad to take questions or comments or anything you want to know more about, or whatever's going on. If you don't have any questions, I'll start talking about the latest movie. So you may or may not want me to do that. No. So I'm gonna play 3 songs here, and I play a lot of music from the Enlightenment album because this is really good. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's 2 different Enlightenment albums, and Rama made one for the students, and he made another one that was a commercial version. And the commercial version, which is what most people have, and that's what we have in various websites, is not as good as the first. The original one has a lot more energy in it, the one with the dragon. So if you can get a copy of that, that one's much better. I highly recommend it. Okay, let's see. I don't want to play Kundalini again because I already did that. So remove that. There we go. Okay, so we'll play the last 3 songs from Enlightenment, and hopefully I can hear it. Y'all can hear it, right? Okay. So just relax. If you are familiar with our meditation techniques, you can do, the navel center, the heart center, third eye. If you're not that familiar, and I should have asked earlier, I guess, just focus on the heart. Just try to feel the energy there moving around. Try to breathe in and out of your heart. Just focus on your heart and smile. That's one of the best ways to meditate. Thank you. So if you can come off mute, that'd be great. And hear you. So I have been thinking that these classes should be monthly. Right now, I'm scheduled to do it every other month. But, you know, as I'm getting excited about the classes and everything, I'm thinking we should do it at least monthly, maybe more. We'll see what happens.
Yes, definitely.
I'll have to talk to the boss and see what she says. But yeah, I used to teach every Friday night because I really like teaching on Friday night. And, you know, it's like Friday Night Live with Roger. I had a friend who was, he was my student for a long time, and he used to help me set up everything. He goes, "Why do you teach on Friday? Don't people go out and do things on Fridays?" I'm like, "Hey, people like us don't have dates, man. What are you talking about?" We have Fridays available. And you know, I used to do it early so that, you know, if people want to go out afterwards, you know, we can be done by, you know, 8:30 or something, and people can go out and do whatever it is they do on Friday nights. But I'm thinking we'll do it at least once a month, and we'll see. Usually I pick a topic and then I talk about it for like half hour, 45 minutes, and we meditate. And then, you know, we have this Q&A afterwards. And right now I'm doing the magical stories because I thought, you know, that would be a good way to start and give you some background to who I am and where I came from. And then we can go crazy and do all kinds of, you know, topics. You know, we do, you know, happiness, power, you know, how to get a job. I don't know, whatever you're interested in. Because, you know, it's about whatever you guys want to learn or want to be exposed to, or, you know, hear my point of view on whatever crazy thing that is going on in my life. I use my life a lot as an example because the more I use my life when I'm teaching, the more things happen to me. And that's interesting because, you know, the worst thing that can happen to you in life is nothing. So when you use your life and talk about it, then it becomes more interesting. I was actually listening to a comedian recently. Her name is Eliza Schlesinger, and she's from Texas, and I got to meet her one time. She's very nice, and she was talking about how all the material that she comes up with is from her life, and she's like, and if I stop doing comedy, things stop happening to me, and I don't like that. I like things to happen to me. So she uses her ideas, the things that happen to her to teach through her comedy. And I think that's what I try to do, I guess, because my life's a comedy as well. So I'll be glad to share some more things with you as we move along. Do you have any questions, any comments? Yes, Taria.
I was just going to say, tomorrow we're posting the July calendar, so there's still time.
There's still time to get on the calendar. All right.
And it's in Nandi tonight, so he can update the calendar for us.
All right, now I'll get to it right after class. Yes, Victoria.
I just wanted to say I really, really enjoyed listening to your stories. I was like on the edge of my seat and I cannot wait to hear more. So I'm really looking forward to your next class. Okay,
I look forward to it. Where are you located?
I'm in a place called San Marcos, California.
Oh, okay.
It's like northern San Diego County.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I lived in LA for 15 years. So I used to come down to San Diego all the time because I love San Diego. Someday I really would like to live in La Jolla, but we'll see about that.
Yeah.
It's a very nice area.
Yeah, I really like La Jolla. The energy there is very nice by the ocean and the university and all that. So I really like that area. Of course, Torrey Pines is just on the street. Love that too. The whole area is really nice. I like it there.
Where are you now?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I lived in California for a while, then came back home basically. I lived in Dallas for a while, lived in Houston, then I finally settled here in San Antonio. San Antonio is really nice because it's a big city, but it's got a small town feeling to it. Yeah, we have everything that a big city has without all the major problems that you have in big cities. So it's the energy is very mellow, but at the same time, it's very powerful. It's a nice place. And I live right on the edge of the city. So like if I go north, there's a lot of really nice wooded areas where I can go. And if I go south, then I go into the city energy. It's nice to have both available to you.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
You started really young, right? I mean,
Yes.
do you remember your past lives? And do you
Yes.
think that you really do, all of them?
I don't know about all of them because we've been reincarnated hundreds of times, but I remember a few of them. Yes.
Can you do a class on that, talking about past lives and how?
Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be really awesome.
So I remember Atlantis because I was just a kid in Atlantis. I remember Egypt very well. In fact, I was able to figure out who I was in Egypt, and I have like a little statue of who I was. So the Egyptian life, I remember a lot about. And then, so when I went to India, I went to see this guy. He's what they call a palm leaves reader. And according to the story, thousands of years ago, God dictated a group of messages to the sages, and they wrote them down on palm leaves. And when you go to the palm leaf office, you ask to see if they have a palm leaf for you, if you have a message from God. And when you go into the office, they show you the leaf, and the leaf has the date that you're going to be there. And it's got like your date of birth, where you were born, and it's got all the details of your life. And it's almost scary because it's like you were born in the
almost.
You're the younger of three. When you were this age, you did this. When you were this age, you graduated from college. When you did this, it was like wow, it's mind blowing. And then there's a part where they talk about your past lives, and I remember a lot of the past lives that he talked about, except for Greece. He told me that I lived in ancient Greece, and I was like this writer, healer type of person. And he told me that a lot of my energy, okay, so I work as a professional writer, and he told me that all of my writing energy came from Greece. And that was a big surprise to me because that was not what I was expecting. But he also talked to me about, you were in Japan, you were a Buddhist, Zen Buddhist monk in Japan, you were a Tibetan Buddhist in China or Tibet, you were in Egypt, you were in Atlantis. So he talked about all the things that I knew, and plus one more. And if you want, at one point we can do a session on the palm leaves because it's really fascinating. All the things that he told me. And I've been comparing them through the years with actual events to see if they have happened or not. And it's very interesting how close their prophecy is to my actual life. So it was really interesting to do that when I was in India. And anybody that goes there, they check to see if you have an appointment. If you have an appointment, you come in and they read your palm leaf. If you don't have an appointment, they send you home. And I had a friend that showed up, and he's like, "No, you're supposed to be here next week." So he left, and he came back the following week, and he goes, "Okay, now it's time for your reading."
All about timing.
So it's really interesting. See, a lot of weird things like that happen to me, and I like to share them with people. So.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so it's 10 o'clock, which is past my bedtime here in Texas. So I would like to thank you all for coming today and being part of this first class. And I will go and check on the calendar, get on the calendar for July, and we'll do this at least once a month.
Sweet.
All right.
Sweet. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
Thank you,
so
Roger.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Now